Build and deploy sophisticated chat, voice, and multimodal applications for any purpose with NLX. NLX works seamlessly with any LLM and existing tech stack, freeing you to create, not configure. Trusted by individual builders and leading teams at the likes of Comcast, Saks Fifth Avenue, Toyota, and United Airlines, NLX helps you turn AI concepts into working conversational experiences with ease. If you want to learn more about how NLX can power your AI transformation, visit NLX.ai. That is NLX.ai. Shout out to NLX for presenting VUX World. Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to VUX World. Here we go. We have got a bit of a unique proposition today. We threw this together at reasonably short notice, so thank you everyone for agreeing to do this on a Friday afternoon. We're preventing Henry from getting some tacos, but hopefully you'll be there. You'll be there momentarily, Henry. So the purpose of this discussion, I'm joined by Henry Iversen, who is the CCO at boost.ai. We have Nerys Corfield, who is a legend in the CCAS space at Injection Consulting, and also another legend is Jon Arnold, who viewers and listeners may recognize from the last episode of VUX World, the only person yet to appear on 2 episodes on the trot. Jon Arnold, industry analyst and overall legend. Thank you, boys and girls, for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
Nice. The idea of this is to discuss the recent developments that have been occurring in the industry. When I say the industry, it's almost a culmination of industries here, really. The AI world and the CX world colliding or coming together, should we say, with NiCE's acquisition of Cognigy, $955 million. Not done deal yet, but seemingly concluding in Q4 this year. NiCE, massive organization, long pedigree, long history in the contact center space. Cognigy, I think, founded similarly to Boost, I think, in 2016 or so. Specific AI platform, enterprise AI platform like Boost. And I think it's just interesting to get all of your perspectives on it, really. LinkedIn's been going a little bit crazy this week. It's one of the biggest acquisitions of its type in the CCAS world for a while. There's been others in the past, like, Zoom acquiring Solvay and Five9 with Inference, Genesis and Bold 360 and those type of things, but nothing quite of the stature or seemingly interest as this one. So curious to get your thoughts and perspectives on these kind of things. So maybe Henry, we'll kick off with you. What do you make of this deal?
It's definitely a statement to the market. There is no doubt about that. And I think obviously we're all looking at the deal size and everything. And I think if you look at the past, there's already been a quite big acquisition in the space. I think also if you look back, like this is a few years back when Facebook acquired Instagram, you have Google acquiring YouTube. People were like, okay, it's a good price. But then they made mockery of that price just months later. I think also if you look at kind of the value creation from a kind of AI layer, basically the conversational AI helps customers to be able to do AI on the customer interactions. I think if you look at the value of that, then you can say what is really big in this space. Because I think if you go into 100 large organizations in the world, you can do so much with AI that I think the value is definitely there for sure. I think that's at least my view of it.
What do you make of it, Nerys?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting because it is 2 leaders coming together. So like we were saying, there has been acquisitions to fill gaps in the requirements list and to do that quickly. But this feels quite different because Cognigy is a leader in their own field. So NiCE are making a play into driving AI. Obviously, they've talked about that for a long time, with Empower coming from the DNA of Nexidia, their acquisition back in 2016. But they've obviously had gaps. And they are filling that gap with a very significant investment in Cognigy and Cognigy's really beautiful product-led focus on just conversational AI. So yeah, it's very interesting how it's going to reshape things in the buyer's world.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, Henry, I'm glad you mentioned Google acquiring YouTube, because that's exactly what was coming to mind for me. It seemed like an outrageous amount of money at the time. I think it was about $1.5 billion. And today, of course, that would be laughably small for what YouTube has become. So, it's hard to say, did they pay too much for Cognigy, relative to their revenues? Maybe, I think they're under 100 million in revenues, Cognigy. Sure, it seems expensive, but the upside is really what we're talking about in a very fast-moving market. And to me, as a sports guy, this is as much about going on offense as it is about going on defense. Obviously, NiCE can afford it. This is not a stretch for them by any means. And sure, there's plenty of opportunities to pay too much for stuff. I mean, look what Zoom almost spent for Five9. It was about 14 billion. They were trying to take them out, and today they'd probably be worth a fraction of that. So timing is everything with this stuff. But I think for NiCE, I mean, I think they don't need Cognigy to be successful. They're already kind of the one everyone is chasing for where AI is kind of playing right now. So this just accelerates their market leadership. But to me, more importantly, this is the defensive side of things. It keeps Cognigy away from everybody else, right? I mean, yes, they have partnerships with Avaya, with Genesis, with 8x8. That's going to be a little tricky to work out, and these deals are always have that kind of secondary element to it that they have to address. But that's manageable stuff. It's more the case of now, if someone is trying to catch NiCE, who are they going to go for, right? Who are the other conversational AI players? There are a lot of them out there. They're a lot smaller than Cognigy, and they don't have the footprint that Cognigy has. There's companies like Core and Yellow, and there's plenty of others that they could be drawing from. But now that's going to be their call to make, to figure how are they going to catch up. It's too late to invent this stuff from scratch and just trying to build it in-house. So that's going to put everybody else in a pretty quick response position just to kind of stay relevant.
It's interesting because I've said for a while now that over time I envisage more and more and more contact hitting the AI layer first. And we spoke a bit about this, John, in the last episode, which is ultimately the first touch point with the customer is where the data goes, and whoever owns the data owns the customer. And so, Henry, I'm sure you've had this with working with the other contact center providers, which is, from your perspective, you need to be the first point of contact because that's how you're going to be able to deliver the best experience. But in doing so, you kind of pose a little bit of a threat to the CCaaS providers because now you own the data. And so over time, fast forward 5 years, 10 years, however long it takes, I can clearly envisage a world where everything hits the AI layer first. Therefore, the touch point with the customer is the AI layer, and all the data flows to the AI provider. So when, John, you were saying it's an offense position from NiCE, I kind of agree with that. But also, the defense is that if they don't do this over time, the disruption potential is very real.
And I think we're also hitting an inflection point in that perspective, because I think when we started Boost, like I think it's 9 years ago now, almost a decade. So basically, we were kind of obviously mostly focused on the chatbot channel. And again, chatbot channel was kind of a part of the whole channel mix, but it was not everything. It was not the whole kind of traffic. So obviously, a lot of traffic were also going through other channels. So I don't think the CCaaS really paid too much attention to us at that time, because we were kind of like, kind of bolted on, I think, some of the CCaaS, and we're obviously doing our own thing, creating AI technology as we kind of went forward. But I think if you look at today, though, especially with generative AI, also conversational AI platform like Boost going into the voice space, we are again taking more of the total traffic. Like more of the traffic is hitting us as the first contact. And that means that we also get more power in that sense, because again, we will get access to all the conversation. And then we need to figure out what will happen on the back end. And that means that could be one contact center, could also be multiple contact center, which we work together with.
Yeah, and that is definitely how buyers are going out to buy now. That I think the term CCaaS is going to die a death, because I think people aren't going to go out and buy CCaaS. They're going to go and buy CX embedded with AI, and the voice and the other routing and all that functionality is going to become secondary. And I kind of disagree with you, John. I think, you know, I've worked with NiCE and they've clearly got great growth and they are a leader, but that growth is largely built on marketing muscle and acquisition. They've had, what, 20 acquisitions? It's not cohesive product innovation. So you are buying a bit of a patchwork of a platform when you buy into NiCE, is the reality, because they don't spend time creating cohesive APIs either. So Cognigy is such a different proposition for them, because their other acquisitions, Cognigy is a true product-led, German manufactured, I want to help the customer deliver. It doesn't care about ego. They just win because they're doing the right thing, not because the marketing budget is there to tell the market that they're doing the right thing. So I'm just really interested to see which of those is going to win out, which ethos is going to win out, because hopefully Cognigy will win, but I just don't know how it's going to map into. Are they going to force fit it into the CX1 umbrella, and it's all going to be a bit messy in the back end like everything else?
They did say they had a kind of a briefing on Monday afternoon, which was that it is going to become part of CX1 Empower platform. However, still it is intended for Cognigy to operate as its own independent thing, and so keep its current customers and also continue to grow as an independent kind of thing. It's interesting to see how that actually plays out, because sometimes it pains me a little bit, as much as I want every AI provider to be successful. Sometimes it pains me a little bit when I see one leave the independent, if you like, market and get acquired. The great example was Speakeasy. Loved Speakeasy, loved the team, brilliant product, really ahead of its time in terms of the voice AI side of things. Was acquired by Verint, and I have no doubt at all that the product that Verint has is absolutely fantastic. I've got no doubt about that, because I know the Speakeasy product and I know the Speakeasy team, and they're all brilliant. It's just that once Verint get hold of it, you never really hear from it again. So I kind of like, I wonder with you, Nerys, like I really, really hope, because the Cognigy team's great, the platform's great. I really hope that it is something that is really kind of like taken on as they've positioned it. It's going to remain. It would be great if it did, because there's a risk, isn't there, that it gets gobbled up.
And you can see that people will buy it as a point solution, so it does make sense not to just bundle it under that CX1 umbrella and to try and just generate its own revenue stream from it. But I do feel, like you say, I love the point solutions that are inches wide and miles deep, but I just don't see, with market values like they are, for the people that have spent the time and effort and energy in developing such great solutions, how are Boost, Poly, how are they going to withstand that, that offer, right? And not to get sucked up and stay independent? I don't see it happening. I see them all getting consumed.
Yeah, there's just so many of them. But, the risk there, too, to what you were saying, Nerys, within NiCE, is that, it's always possible that the culture and the kind of mentality around how you go to market with this stuff, you never know. There could be clashes with the way that Cognigy has had success and the way that NiCE wants to take that to market, as you say, part of the Empower story. There's always the possibility that, it could turn out that, Cognigy is actually further ahead than NiCE, and that maybe they should have waited and maybe, considered other partners as well. Because it's hard to know how far ahead or behind you are from what's really working until you're kind of in there. And of course, the channels are going to have to figure this out too.
Yes, exactly. And they're very enterprise. You can Cognigy really understand. And of course, NiCE have won some very significant CCaaS wins, but Cognigy only really play in the enterprise space. So they understand diligence, don't they? And they don't play down in the SMB. So that's interesting how it's going to net down into their SMB space as well.
What are your thoughts? It'd be interesting, I suppose, Henry, from your perspective, in terms of what you see in the markets. You mentioned earlier that Boost was kind of a bolt-on to a contact center, but now as you start to, endure more traffic, you become a lot more powerful. The offering, I suppose, that NiCE is able to put forth. I suppose Genesis have got a similar one, but I would say less mature on the AI side. Is this one-stop shop? Verint probably in that position now. One-stop shop, just come here and you can get everything that you need from us. Whereas there's also potentially value in very specialist companies that just do one thing really, really well, as Nerys said, inches wide and miles deep. So do you think this will change the way that companies buy stuff over time if there is further consolidation like that, or not?
So I think certainly there would be some company preferring having a one-stop shop. It's obviously convenient to get everything, and you get the one invoice, probably a big invoice. But I think there's also a great opportunity to be more like a pure play in this space. Because I think, like, if you're looking just from the Boost perspective, how much time we spend to obsess about how we actually kind of solving problems here and also utilizing all the new technologies, and doing that in a very big organization, I can definitely see it's a bit more challenging. So I think obviously we are like a big team, but we're also small enough to be very nimble and also being kind of fast in kind of deployment of new technology and features. We don't need to think about 100,000 customers or 10,000 customers. We have a few hundred, so we can kind of focus on make sure we deliver value for them every day. So I think there is definitely a lot of direction you can go in this space, but I think for the pure play, there's definitely a big opportunity now to really focus. And also, if you look at kind of the most successful projects we have done, obviously technology is a big part of it, but it's also about the humans and how you actually deploy it, how to enable the organization, who do you train in an organization to become the master of the solution. So there are so many aspects of this, and you really need to be able to understand that. And that's maybe hard to do in a big organization.
That's so true, isn't it? It's how much is going to get diluted, because if they're going to keep it as a solution that can stand on its own, hopefully they will keep the resources and the linguists and the conversational specialists as well as the developers separate as well, that do just think about this all day, every day. Because when I've just finished judging best AI solution, and I consistently judge it every year for the X's as well as CX Today. That passion that you've just talked about there is so evident, that real, like, we don't think about anything else. We wake up in the morning and all we think about is how to do better for our customers on this solution. That is not the way any of the CCaaS vendors think, and it's certainly not the way NiCE think, because they are a checkbook R&D kind of organization.
Is it possible? Yeah. Is it possible then because every CCaaS provider now, pretty much, apart from a few, has either acquired some kind of AI capabilities. Yeah. When I say AI, they've built a lot of their own stuff for like summarization and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about like enterprise automation, like the Boost type of platform, where customers talk with the AI assistant and it gets the job done. A lot of them have them. Again, a lot of them are subpar. My opinion has always been that there is for the reasons that you both have just outlined, there is a disconnect between the belief that some CCaaS providers have in their ability to execute AI successfully and really, really well versus the reality. Because as long as you're still trying to do workforce management and you're still trying to do CCaaS and you're still trying to do CPaaS and you're still trying to do all that kind of stuff, how do you compete with someone like Boost, who all they do, live and breathe every single day, is this very specific capability? So my view is that from the evidence I've seen so far, I haven't come across a CCaaS provider necessarily that is really, really strong on the AI side. And I don't know if it's feasible given what you've kind of just said. I'd be delighted to be proven wrong, because all I want to see is good interactions and things working really well for businesses and customers. But it does seem to be a bit of a difficult thing to do, isn't it? A company that does so much stuff to get this thing really, really right.
Yeah, but I mean, everything about AI is scale, right? I mean, it's the hyperscalers are so dominant. The open AIs of the world are really setting the pace, and it's getting harder and harder for smaller players to, be viable and to break through. And kind of Cognigy is kind of like that great white hope that they're really proving that they can get those enterprise class global brand wins, and everybody wants that. So it's not surprising that NiCE sees that as that's the level they want to be at. It's a good fit. But to the earlier points about being independent, what we really want to see in this market is 10 companies who are like Cognigy, who are doing really cool things. And I'm sure if we looked further afield, we might find them in India and China and South Africa, whatever, all doing similar stuff, because no one's got a monopoly on this AI technology. But, you have to think about, are there optics here to be concerned about in the EU market to say, oh, here's our rising star, just sold out to an American company? Is there an issue? You guys are there. Is there a sense within the EU that, we're trying to develop our own tech ecosystem, and we have plenty of tier one players here? And does this kind of, does this leave maybe a bad taste for the other EU vendors who are trying to break through, that maybe selling out to a big American company is the only way to go?
What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, it's a good question though. I think obviously EU has a lot of great technology, and being sold out to US, I think obviously could happen. I think there's a definitely big merit to also be in Europe, because again, it's a big market, and we sometimes forget about that. Everyone want to go to US and make it big, and obviously US is an extremely important market to be in, to be successfully kind of on a global scale. But I think also Europe is also a bit forgotten in that sense, and we also have a lot of countries in Europe which also where you can really scale out the opportunity. So I still think there is some vendors in EU which also could obviously have that same position. But I think in this case, obviously, it went for the US ownership.
And I think it's super smart on NiCE's perspective to buy a European vendor, because, the EU AI Act is really the only act that's in play at the moment. And so to buy a vendor that will align themselves to that and sits within that culture and understands it, because my experience is, we talk a lot about GDPR, and the US side of the market don't really understand, data controller, processor, all of that. So it's really smart to have bought a European vendor. But John, the reality is most of it is out in the US. Most of it is Silicon Valley, unfortunately. And, until that, I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I think the European vendors would do well to look for buyers out in the US, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean, it validates there are good European companies that play very well in this market. So I think it's huge. It's hugely good news in that regard for the EU tech ecosystem to say, hey, we got a lot of other good companies here too. You should take a closer look. So I'm sure the financial community will be turning its sights this way, as will be NiCE's competitors, who say, well, what other rocks do we have to look under to find these, these great companies?
According to the session that they held, the briefing on Monday, the European component was a good part of it, because it allows NiCE to kind of expand into Europe. The thing that I found interesting was that BCG put together some data. Two things that I think are interesting. One is the total addressable market for software spend, not specifically AI spend, but I think AI increasingly, you find a software vendor today that is not raging about AI, and I'll eat my hat. And so the total addressable market, apparently going forward, not today, but increasingly, 72 billion today, but increasingly, apparently the total addressable market is about 330 billion, which is huge. Compare that to, and I don't know if I believe this stat or not, because it doesn't say where it comes from. I think it might be BCG, but I'm not sure, which is less than 5% of interactions today globally for businesses. I don't know if it's globally, actually. I could be lying there, but it doesn't actually say. It just says early market adoption. Less than 5% of interactions are contained by AI today. So I don't know whether...
beautiful stat to tell the market, isn't it?
It
What
is,
a
yeah.
beautiful stat to tell the market. What a load of rubbish.
I don't know where you get that data from. You have to speak to every business on the planet. But
I'll tell you what, I speak to a lot, and they're a lot higher than 5%.
well, maybe of the 5% that are utilizing it may be very highly successful. I think the point might be that they're trying to say that hardly any businesses are actually using it today. I don't know if you would concur with that.
No, I don't concur with that.
I think still, I don't know what the exact number should be like, but I still think there's a massive potential in terms of really rolling it out. And I think there's a lot of companies, especially outside kind of verticals, like I think maybe the public sector, I think the financial services, telcos have definitely been utilizing conversational AI technology for a while. But I think there's a ton of other, like transportation, retail, and others, which have not really utilized it to the same level. And I don't know what the exact number should be like, but I think we can probably agree that there is still a big upside for everyone in this space.
Yeah, big upside, not 95% left to still penetrate. That's not, that's ridiculous.
Sure. So the one thing I just want to add to that point, because I think we sometimes kind of come into kind of a situation where we talk about contact centers kind of more like reactive service. So if the customer get a problem, they call you or text you, and then you try to solve it. I think also the beauty with this technology is that you can also think a bit more like customer engagement. How can you do upselling? Kind of how can you do sales, marketing? There's so much more you can do with the technology. I think if you look at kind of what is the value of having a technology where you can have a one-to-one relationship with your customers at scale. What is the value of that?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, in deals now, Cognigy have to lead, because Cognigy can drive those discussions intelligently, and the NiCE guys have to just sit back and wait till the CCaaS bit comes into play, because it will come later down the line. So that is a real shift, and that's going to be a shift for all of their sales resources. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can let them breathe and do that stuff, and you know, they'll move into that marketing side of things, that sales, that reactive customer service experience.
Yeah, that'll be easier said than done, because I know of a number of CCaaS providers who have the same opportunity, and really their sales motion should be exactly that. First of all, what we're going to do is assess your contact. Then what we're going to do is decide what we can automate. Then what we're going to do is automate everything we can. Then what we're going to do is route everything else to the most appropriate self-service channel. Then and only then do we route everything else to the right agents. And now we can talk about the contact center. And that's the formula for the future, I think. And that, though, for a company like NiCE, is such a cataclysmic shift away from let's just sell some licenses quick.
Yeah, and that's because the market needs their end of quarter deals done. You know, so the market doesn't allow time for me to go in and the consultancy to engage and to really spend time on the strategy and thinking about things properly, because the PMs want to deliver to that dead date that allows the licenses to start to be billed in quarter, so they can report it back up to the analysts and the market. You know, that's a fundamental problem But I just want to pick up on something as well. Jon said earlier, he said that you haven't got time to start building your own now. I totally disagree with that as well, because you definitely have. It's nice to acquire, because you acquire net new logos into portfolio as well. But Kane, you and I have spoke over the years about Toby and Vodafone, and of course they are now building a brand new bot from scratch through Voxy, doing it in a completely different way. And you're seeing that with other CCaaS vendors as well. They are thinking, actually, how much of this can we build on our own? You say Zoom acquired, they did, but they are still driving a lot of R&D into product development.
Yeah, they've just released the new voice AI side of things, which I think a lot of that's homegrown.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it is native, and we're seeing green shoots of other CCaaS vendors going, actually, we should have been building our own. And I don't know why 3 years ago they didn't ever foresee that. It's so frustrating that they've all just gone, oh, let's buy some, ticking the box of the RFP, instead of going, perhaps we should build our own. Because, this is all, Amelia probably was a terrible disaster for NiCE. Probably why they've decided to not take one on loan and actually buy one is because they don't want to go there again. So, yeah, I do think that, building is much better because of the fact that you've got this patchwork quilt in the back end, and the cultural, dissonance that's going to inevitably come out of it, which will impact buyers and customers.
I think I know Henry's going to have some perspectives on this because the recent, when I was at Boost Camp recently, and some companies there were deploying in a matter of days, and so it's horses for courses, I suppose. Technically speaking, you can build your own stuff, but it's like, what matters more, doing something and getting to market, or building. I don't know, Henry, if you've got anything else to add on that one. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, so probably not a surprise that I don't disagree. I disagree with you in terms of building yourself. And I think obviously, there is a lot of organizations have I'd say for me, maybe the delusion in terms of what you can do. You can get a lot of the language understanding out of the box with generative AI now, but there's obviously a long way for having to understand part of the conversation to actually have like an end-to-end automation. Then you need all the boring stuff like guardrails. You need to have testing tools. You need to have a UI for the users. You need to do PII, masking of the data. So there's obviously tons of things you need to build into it. And those are...
I don't mean the brands. I mean the vendors.
Yeah. But I still need to build that though on your side. And that's the reason I think a lot of these kind of vendors also kind of go into the partnership model, where they can obviously also then partner up with the best of breed. Because I also think customers will also have a bit unique needs sometimes. Some of them obviously have a need of kind of the full suite around privacy and security. And if you're a smaller e-commerce, you maybe don't need that kind of full force of the model.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Zoom, Nerys, because to me they're a bit of the exception to the rule. They even spend more than NiCE does on R&D. They are, I think it's 17% of revenues, and it's when they can have a spend at that level. But they also have a culture of innovation that is pretty unusual, and they kind of borrow the way that Huawei does things in China. They just out innovate everybody. So yes, they've been able, and they learned from their missteps trying to acquire Five9 that you know what, we are better off building. But a lot of vendors don't have that luxury right now. You need resources to do that, and you can't afford to make mistakes. The space is just moving so quickly now, and Cognigy's put in the sweat equity to solve all the problems, and they're ready now. And it's going to be hard to catch up to that.
It must give you some enthusiasm, Henry. You've been going for similar length of time as Cognigy. I know you're competitors, but surely you can appreciate from another founder's point of view that it's a positive signal, perhaps for European technology and for AI. Like how does it kind of what's your perspectives on it from a Boost perspective? It must give you some enthusiasm, does it?
So I think we're obviously happy to see that European companies are appreciated, but also that this space is also appreciated. So as we talked about earlier, it's definitely a big signal to the market that this is extremely important. And I think we obviously have known this for many, many years, but I think now it's definitely hitting much more mainstream than before. So I think for us, it's obviously a very good time to be in this industry, very good time. So we've been obviously delivering amazing result, basically the whole 9 years, but especially since generative AI came in. And I think also now you're also seeing a lot of partners, other kind of players in this space also kind of reaching out and want to collaborate with you guys, with us. So,
Henry, do you think it will change the way buyers engage with you? Do you think that they'll really, especially if you're part of a CCaaS deal, do you think there'll be more diligence around your risk of being consumed by another?
So I think at least so far in kind of our engagement with customers, they actually come to us for more advice, I think, around CCaaS now than before, because they also know that we are extremely critical part of kind of every conversation. So they're also thinking like, okay, how can you actually integrate with the CCaaS? Because it's pretty much a very fragmented picture in most cases. You have multiple different vendors back there. You have some human chat vendors, and then you have maybe someone for voice channel and so on. So we are kind of often ending up kind of being kind of the front and center, and then we have vendors on the back end. So I haven't seen us being more involved in conversation, I think, lately. And I think that will also increase as we also get a more strategic kind of voice into the bigger customers. Obviously, we know some of the big tech guys always have kind of an open line into the leadership. That's obviously their kind of advantage. if you are Salesforce or Microsoft and Google, you can probably call to the leadership in a lot of organizations. But I also think like we as a vendor, we really need to come to the table with really sharing kind of the best practice for the industry, really not talking about things, but actually showing it in practice though. And that is kind of how we are winning though.
I think the going back to what we were saying in terms of the importance of the AI component over time and being that first part of the interaction, the other kind of risk, I suppose, is that if NiCE and all CCaaS providers that have got these capabilities continue, the way that it's kind of unfolding at the moment is that they still have the CCaaS motion, which is they're still selling the CCaaS, and the AI component is like an add-on. It's almost like we'll throw it in to sweeten the deal type of thing. Whereas actually the effort it takes and the amount of resources that it takes to get this stuff off the ground successfully, and to sustain it and to scale it and to really get value from it is worthy of, there's whole teams of people across big enterprises that do nothing but optimize AI journeys and build AI journeys. And so it's a I believe at least it will be an increasingly significant part of not just contact centers, but businesses everywhere, from marketing to sales, everything. But it requires the CCaaS providers to understand that and to start prioritizing that as a main focus, not as an add-on,
I agree totally, and very few of them throw it in. They don't throw it in for free. That's for sure.
No, not for free, but it's almost like a sweeten the deal type of discounted add-on or whatever.
An add-on, but no, exactly. I think you're absolutely right. I think AI has to lead. I think it's driving into what are your use cases, where is the optimum opportunities to deliver through AI and support the advisors through AI as well. I know we're not talking about that in this instance, but yeah, that should be the front runner, and then everything else sit behind it, and therefore the way they tend to price out CCaaS as licenses and AI as bundles, most of them. So how's that going to change? Because that's quite confusing for the buyer. And how are you going to get over this overlap as well that's consistently going to occur as more and more acquisitions happen? That's a bit tricky as well.
And I think you're touching into kind of a challenge, because obviously with the CCaaS sales team, they are kind of incentivized to sell seats normally.
Yeah.
And we also know that we want to do automation, so we will actually be needing less seats. So how do you kind of build from, I think a lot of the conversation AI platform has kind of gone into kind of doing consumption-based model. So basically you only pay for the valuable conversation, which is also a bit unique model. So we don't think about like kind of pricing per human seat, basically. So that's also a bit conflicting interest, I think. They also need to figure out how to do that in practice.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the BPO world. They're sort of really battling with that their ambition for a customer is to drive down their seats, and they charge bums on seats. And this is exactly the same challenge. It's turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it? So it's really difficult for them, and they can all upscale really well, but downscaling, they don't like downscaling. So are we going to go to, like the BPOs are starting to do, are we going to go to an outcome-based model, like you say, successful conversations, and that's the bit that you pay for?
Yeah,
but the market won't like that.
No, definitely not. Interesting. Any final thoughts then? Anything that you're excited about over the next 6 to 12 months, either related to the acquisition or generally in terms of the market? Maybe we'll start with Jon and we'll go around and get some perspectives.
Well, it didn't take long for some dominoes to fall, and it makes you wonder if this is all connected or just coincidence, if that's how the week has played out. But certainly, you hear Genesys getting this big infusion from ServiceNow and at Salesforce yesterday. Meanwhile, at NiCE, probably the biggest story from their analyst event interactions was their partnership with ServiceNow, as well as Snowflake and AWS. But, it sounds like, oh, look, we've all partnered up with ServiceNow. We're going to really broaden our footprint in the enterprise and have more, end-to-end orchestration of workflows, et cetera, which is kind of where they want to go. And now here we are, just days after this news, that ServiceNow is also injecting a whole lot of money into Genesys, their biggest competitor. And it just shows you the nature of this co-opetition, your frenemy kind of mentality in this. But clearly, Genesys can't stand still. And then you've got, Five9 Yes, they had good results, I think, today financially, but their CEO, Mike Birkeland, is retiring, and he's got health issues, and they've lost other people too, and cuts, with their CMO leaving recently, and so there's some instability there, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier, guys, about this idea of pure plays like Cognigy. Well, I think there's some shakeout that's going to follow here in the CCaaS space itself, validating the model. Can these pure plays do only CCaaS like TalkDesk and Five9, Genesys? Even, yes, NiCE does have a UCaaS play with CX3, I think they're called, but that's a distraction. There's nothing real about that.
It's a tick box.
Yeah, it's a tick box. If you really want it, we can give it to you for $5, sure. But we're not gonna get rich doing it. But yeah, can the market, the way AI is forcing things to change now, can that pure play business model of selling seats still survive? And I'm really wondering, how are these guys gonna make it? I don't know. I'm not sure right now.
I was speaking to a BPO recently that was forecasting their revenues to go down pretty significantly, but their profit margins to go up, because they're going to be charging less because paying per interaction is cheaper than paying per agent, but it's going to be cheaper for them to do it. So their organization is going to shrink in terms of headcount, likely shrink in terms of revenue, but the actual profit that they'll take home at the end of the year will actually be more. So for a company like NiCE, you see your share price, oh, no, maybe it's not the share price because that might not be the case, but valuation or whatever is going to decrease dramatically, and revenues are going to go down, but your profits are going to go up. It's a massive decision to make. That.
Well, that's the SaaS market.
Yeah.
I just hope it shakes out that we really focus, like we all take the point solutions ethos and think, I want to create brilliant products for customers. I don't care about the shareholders. I know that's naive, but wouldn't that be a wonderful world if actually all we gave a toot about was delivering to the customers and delivering to their goals? And Cognigy have grown to the level that they can sell themselves for 997 million as a consequence of that focus. So it really, let's hope that that's the way the market goes, and we don't overbloat ourselves with just marketing and salespeople with shiny shoes trying to sell you a dream. Let's just focus on good products delivering good outcomes.
Yeah,
what your thoughts, Henry?
Yeah, I definitely agree on that point for sure. And I think the next 12 months, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to be in this space. And I think you're also going to see a big acceleration of innovation. I think obviously I have the luxury of being pretty close to the product team and just seeing kind of what we're cooking up with. And I think there is so much stuff we can do. And especially now with generative AI has enabled a lot in terms of how easy it is to go into production, how easy it's to maintain it, how easy it's to really create value. And I think there is, what is a bit surprising for me, it has taken a bit time for organizations to really kind of roll out like really, really good ones. There's obviously some good ones hitting the market, but there is still a lot of bad chatbots out there. So I think that difference is also going to be much more significant. And I think also, hopefully the customer will also be very kind of, I would say, explicit with the organization. So with their customers that they need something better. So I think that is going to be a big differentiator in the future for the organization, really being successful with this. And also then exploring not only the chat channel, but the voice channel, and just kind of be really becoming this omni channel, which we all dreamt of, but has not really become a reality yet.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, absolutely agreed. I think that it's been a very interesting week. Very exciting week, and let's see where it ends up. I think there's definitely certainly this year, last few years as well, but more so this year, it feels to me at least as though obviously the interest in AI is still at an all-time high, but it seems to be that it feels like we're getting there. We're saying it's early or whatever, and not as many companies have got deployments, and some chatbots are still rubbish, and they are. I've been doing loads of audits recently, and I'll tell you, every one in 10 chatbots is half decent. 9 out of 10 are absolutely terrible. still to this day, and it pains me every time I come across one like that. But I think hopefully what this will do is it'll help the market understand the importance of it, and I think everyone collectively on this podcast and beyond can keep banging the drum, as you said, Nerys, and focus on the customer, focus on the interaction, focus on getting it right, and over time, I think the world will be a better place. Basically, less time wasted, less time doing stuff that you don't want to do, more value for the company, etc., etc., etc. So it's a good time to be in this space.
Yeah, definitely.
Wicked. Well, thank you all for joining me. Sorry, Henry, we did take a little bit longer. Your tacos might be a bit cold by now, but hopefully they're still fine. Thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it, especially at short notice. It's been really, really valuable conversation, and it's, have a great weekend, and thanks again.
Yeah, have a good
All right.
weekend.
Yeah, that's all. Thanks all for watching.
Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks now.